peaking at over 500,000 people yesterday. That's a lot of people playing.
Marvel Rivals is a threat, and I don't think people really understand exactly what's going on here with this game. We are seeing player retention on a scale that we haven't seen since Helldivers 2, and even still then, it's beating out what was a worldwide phenomenon at the time.
Yeah.
4 new playable characters, 3 new maps, new match types.
I would argue that Marvel Rivals probably has the same equivalent meme power as Helldivers did. So Helldivers 2 was more popular in the US, but Marvel Rivals is more popular in the world. Especially when you're counting like all the cosplays and all the people talking about it. And also, a lot of aggregation for Google doesn't come from China. And this game was made by a Chinese developer, so it would be implied and assumed that China would be tremendously more Marvel Rivals.
Kinds of new content that's coming into the game. This game is a major disruption for not only the AAA industry, but also just the live service industry across the board because, well, it's a game that's serving its fans. It's meeting the demands of its audience, and that kind of goes against the creed of many live service games that are out there. They don't really like to give us too much. They usually like to drip feed things a little bit, and it ends up upsetting the fans, and that's one of the reasons why this game is getting so much support.
I think the reason why a lot of fans get upset about live service games is when live service games prioritize making systems that arbitrarily increase player time in order to get people to just simply spend more time to achieve the same goals. Like almost all the time when you have a live service issue, it stems probably from that.
And listening to your audience, such a foreign topic nowadays.
Yeah.
We're now hearing rumblings or rumors at the very least that there's a PvE mode that's in development as well. So we're going to talk about that. But Blizzard would be
Marvel Rivals 2.
If they actually released one. That'd be
really funny.
NetEase, you could do the funniest thing. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about all things Marvel Rivals, from the new content to its future to those that would stand in the way of its success, and why this game is going to be a problem many can't ignore. We are now 1 month out from the launch.
Can you imagine if, like, China figures out how to make a good MMO? So, like, China destroyed Diablo 4 with PoE, indirectly, because, you know, GGG is owned by Tencent. They've now destroyed Overwatch with Marvel Rivals. And if they make a good MMO, oh my god.
Of Marvel Rivals, and the game hasn't showed any signs of slowing down or stopping. Historically, when we see a popular game release, live service...
I think that it will probably slow down. I do. I've been pretty... there's a lot of people that disagree with me on this. People think that's not true. I think it will.
Or not. We tend to see the game surge in the week of its launch, and then
what
players
an
that aren't
idiot.
interested in the game start moving on, and the player count kind of falls to find its dedicated audience. However, in the case of Marvel Rivals, we're seeing the opposite. We're just now a month past its launch, and we're consistently seeing the game hold over 400,000 concurrent players on Steam, less than 50,000 down from its peak. Just to put that into perspective, when Helldivers 2 lit the internet on fire earlier last year, its release surged up to 458,000 players and then dropped.
I would argue that the Helldivers success is actually more impressive than the Marvel Rivals success, because Helldivers was a boxed game. And to have over 70% of the comparative success of a completely free game, I would still say that Helldivers was a bigger success commercially, but I do think that Marvel Rivals will make more money from a major IP. Yeah, and also from a new IP. Because, I mean, Helldivers 2, there was a game before that, but it was, like, really not a big game at all.
To 334,000 players after its first month, losing 30% of its players from its peak. Marvel Rivals has lost 9. That is absurd, because that means that this game is either replacing players that are leaving the game.
Well, the reason why also is because Helldivers 2 didn't have any progression system. There was no real progression system in Helldivers 2. There was just do the same thing over and over and get a few new guns. Whereas this has an entire ranked mode and everything that people can grind.
With new players that want to try it out,
one of the reasons why I didn't stick around with Helldivers.
Or the players aren't leaving the game, which likely it's probably a blend of the two. Players are actually sticking around to keep playing the game, and the players that are leaving are getting replaced with new players. And there's a lot of reasons for this game's continued popularity. One of the reasons for this, I think, is that the game is being consumed so much on social media. While I know that there's a lot of people that are out there that don't think social media presence of a game is indicative of its success or its play.
It is and it's not. So inside of a similar genre, it matters. But if social media presence didn't matter, then why does every company invest millions of dollars into having a social media presence? Why do they pay tens of millions of dollars for marketing on social media if it really didn't matter?
Player base, from my perspective, the more people that are consuming content around the game, the more people that are playing it. On Twitch, when the game released, it surged up to 200.
Yeah, wow. Interest in the game is indicative of interest in the game. Yes, absolutely. I wish more people could realize this obvious fact.
27,000 viewers, many of the biggest channels receiving sponsorships, and some players were just interested in playing the game, and now it's sitting at an average of 100K viewers daily, making it one of the top categories on the platform. YouTube videos covering the best plays, the best players, tier lists, and gameplay are totaling millions of views.
Yeah, like after Team Captain made that Wolverine video, I've been seeing so many copycat videos, and it's like top streamers react to the #1 Star-Lord, or top streamers react to the #1 Groot, or something like that. I was going to watch some of them on my stream, I just haven't really had time. But like, yeah, it's super popular.
And Twitter and Reddit are overflowing with fan art and cosplays
I didn't
of
get
the
sponsored
game's
for this game.
heroes.
I just
Both the
played it.
ranked and casual modes in Rivals are thriving, which honestly is pretty rare to see. The casual mode is drawing in all types of players, whether they're just here for fun or just don't want the pressure of ranked matches. At the exact same time, the ranked mode is keeping the competitive crowd engaged, with plenty of players that are grinding to climb the ladder, participating in tournaments, and all kinds of different things. The game is offering something for everyone, and that's why it's working so well. Now the game is getting its first major update with Season 1, featuring 4 new characters in the Fantastic Four. Susan Storm and Mr. Fantastic are up first, and then in the second half of the season, we're going to see the other 2 characters. We're also getting new maps with the Sanctum Sanctorum and Midtown that are going to drop in the first half, and Central Park in the second half. Plus, there's going to be new game modes and objectives, keeping things fresh for the players. And the whole time that they've been developing all of this new content for the game, the developers have been, well, genuinely listening to player feedback, engaging with their community directly, tackling issues.
I think that they've nerfed and addressed a lot of the prime concerns that players have. Like, for example, a lot of people were telling me that Hela and Hawkeye were getting banned in like every single high-end game. If you have certain characters that are getting banned in every single game, there's probably a reason for it.
The game, balancing performance issues with characters like Hawkeye and Hela, and bringing up lesser characters like Cloak and Dagger. They've been cooking. Now we have a prominent leaker for Rivals, at Rivals Info on Twitter, who's been digging around the game file.
Here's an issue. Here's a criticism that I have of the first season of Marvel Rivals. I think visually it's very hard for me to tell the difference between Cloak and Dagger and Mrs. Fantastic, Invisible Woman. Like, visually, whenever I see both characters, they pretty much look the same to me. And I can see this becoming a bigger problem. And so I think they need to, figure out, make sure that does not happen again. They literally look identical. They do.
And has shown off a lot of skins that hadn't made their way into the game and then later did, and more skins that we're likely going to see in the future. Recently, they shared that they discovered project
all white
files
women
for
look the same.
PvE content that's either in development or was cut from the game. While we have no word on what the status of this potential PvE mode is, if Blizzard saw potential in it, then likely NetEase has as well. And honestly, it would be the funniest thing ever if they actually implemented meaningful PvE into the game where Overwatch failed to do so.
Dude, if they add PvE into the game, if I was working on Overwatch, I would seriously probably just be like, guys, like my morale as a player would go down by so much, or as a developer would go down by so much. I would feel so terrible.
This is something that genuinely could attract a completely different audience into the game and also give more players a reason to stick around. Now, what's truly fascinating about all of this is that most modern live service games would never and could never deliver on this sort of content or be this ambitious, especially for free. Most live service games, especially shooters,
for free. Guys, it's free. You don't have to pay anything.
Ignore any issues that are in their games. Maybe they will, throw in a single player map or a minor changes to existing ones. They'll occasionally drop a new character or weapon. Apex Legends,
so China can weaponize all of our computers for when they invade the US, they'll blow up everybody's computer that has Marvel Rivals installed onto it.
as an example, just revealed their update at the exact same time as Rivals announced their first season, and
it's like that thing
all
that
they're
they did to
offering
those,
is cosmetics. Overwatch 2 did the exact same thing. Well, watching a mass exodus from their game, they chose to release recolors of existing skins to try to entice players back.
Well, you look at this character, like, does this look good? Like, I'm gonna be real. Alternative artists come up with better costumes for D.Va than this. Like, I remember when they started, I saw that Blizzard hired a bunch of furries to be character designers, and I thought this would be a good idea because they've got a lot of attention to detail. But man, not so good, huh?
Their game. Reading through some of the comments on these announcement videos, you can see an outcry from fans begging them to fix issues within their games, livid that the games that they've invested so much in won't invest in them or even try to fight back against new competition that has stepped into the market. This kind of goes back to a broader topic that I've discussed in the past many times on this channel by now, but many of these modern live service games just don't have the respect for their audience that's necessary to keep players happy or to keep them around. Each update only serves to increase their bottom line by introducing more microtransactions and cosmetics rather than meaningful content or addressing player concerns or just general issues within their games. I mean, look at the state of Call of Duty right now. While Black Ops 6 was received pretty well at launch, it has reportedly lost over half of its players, and it's getting worse by the day. All of this is driven...
Of course. But I think also another big reason for that is because people bought Call of Duty... what does it say again?
Reportedly lost over...
Yeah, of course. I didn't know if they made a distinction between players or multiplayer players. People played the campaign, then they stopped playing the game. Like with Marvel Rivals, like that's it, right? And so like I wouldn't really say this is a terrible thing. No one played the campaign? Really? I felt like this campaign was pretty well advertised, and I think that a lot of people probably bought the game to play the campaign. I do. I think that it was a factor.
Half of its players, and it's getting worse by the day. All of this is driven by the fact that players aren't satisfied.
Hey, maybe I'm wrong.
As these studios continue to deliver the exact same
thing.
thing, nothing changes. There's no advancement. They won't fix issues within their games. They let cheaters run rampant, yet they have no problem releasing cosmetics and new battle passes.
Yeah.
This sends the signal to the players that your experience or your enjoyment don't matter. Only your money does. The biggest threat to the video game...
big issue is the biggest threat to the video game industry is the video game industry. Please say it.
Industry is the fact that players have learned how to vote with their wallets. And
there's that too. And and so anyway, normies play the campaign and chat. Here are not normie gamers. Yeah, no doubt. And so I think also another big issue with Overwatch is that Overwatch has such an established community. It's going to be really hard for... It's like Team Fortress 2 still exists when Overwatch has been out for years. So, and everybody thought that was going to kill Team Fortress 2, and it didn't. There's still people that play it. So, like, Overwatch does have a different gameplay experience than Marvel Rivals, even though I think that they do generally occupy the same space. So, current pool... Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Is like, if there is a... if there's another game that's going to be out there, it doesn't necessarily mean that like two games can't exist in the space, but there are going to be a lot of people from Overwatch that are going to move over to playing Marvel Rivals. Like for me, I would much rather play Marvel Rivals than Overwatch because I like third person better. I just do. It feels better to play. The amount of spell effects that Marvel Rivals has is not as bad as Overwatch. And also, the game is like, you don't have like such a high skill ceiling now. Like, yeah, there's people that are really good at Marvel Rivals, but it's not like people that are playing Widowmaker that have played Widowmaker for 5 years.
I just love to see it. I love to watch them struggle, and the struggle's going to get real pretty soon here. You have to respect where the money comes from, and many of these studios have lost sight of that. And I think it's just because they've got so comfortable sitting in their C-suite offices, sitting back, drinking their, bottle of water with waifu stickers all over it and saying, these idiots, they'll buy anything. They'll still play it.
Yeah.
And they're right, because we're impulsive.
I think that the problem actually is that I think that the marketing departments for these gaming companies are basing their projections and their research, like player research, off of antiquated metrics. Like, they're still focus grouping, and they're doing all of the things that they did in 1995 or 2005. And the gaming community has just simply evolved since then. And I don't think that a lot of these gaming companies, especially the really big ones that are super corporate, they're probably still making business decisions like it's 2005 or 2010 even. And I think that's a big issue too. Big companies move slowly. They're always behind. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that one of the reasons why a lot of these devs and these people that are designers on the game think this is because they get fed this information by a marketing team or by like a team that's supposed to like get player feedback, and the metrics for player feedback that they get are completely wrong.
Of creatures, it's what we do, but what ends up happening when the game across the street treats us better?
Well, then you go across the street.
You didn't think about that, did you? You know, anecdotal, I know, but I loved Warzone when it first released. I had so much fun.
Same.
A lot of people
God.
Get pretty nostalgic about Verdansk, but I also clearly remember how many issues that game had, how often they would go unalleviated, and how easily they would introduce microtransactions and skins and battle passes. How many times the stim glitch came back into the game, skins that would release that would make players invisible.
The rose skin.
There's like the one time that they had like the helicopter glitch, and then they fixed it, and then it made another glitch happen, and then another one, and then another one. It went on for like 3 months. Meanwhile, they never did anything about any of the cheaters in the game. Warzone today still suffers from those same issues. It's the same story because none of those things ever
I wonder if that's going to happen with Marvel Rivals, though. Is because like cheating is a huge issue with games, and I think that once cheating inside of a competitive game becomes the norm, it destroys the game. Because it totally undermines the credibility and like the integrity of any time that you play against somebody who's good. Like back in the day, you would play against somebody who was really good and you'd lose and you'd say, damn, that guy he's really good. I need to get better, right? Now it's like you don't know if you just lost to somebody who's a cheater or somebody who's a god.
Fixed because they're never a priority, because the players are not a priority. We are the afterthought.
And I think also like for any player who's like progression minded, like with ranking, it becomes even worse. Because like now you're getting downranked because you're not playing in this way. And like you go up against a cheater and now you are getting punished because of this cheater.
There's our money that is the first thing that they want. And the only way they can get that is through microtransactions. But what they don't realize is that if these games are not in the state that they need to be, and you're not feeding the players with good enough content, they're not going to stick around, and you're not going to get the microtransactions if we're not playing the game. That's kind of how this works. When I look around the games industry right now, I see a lot of these live service studios that have gotten fat and comfortable and greedy. They don't want, it's like I said before, all they want to do is take. And the only time that they ever want to give back is when their backs are up against the wall.
Yeah.
Marvel Rivals is about to line them all up. Too many live service games are doing the absolute bare minimum while squeezing their players dry with microtransactions and cosmetics, while ignoring real issues within their games. That is the reason why Marvel Rivals is seeing such an outpour of support, is because the players feel like they're heard, they're getting content that's worthwhile to them, and the game has a bright future.
And also it's a massive IP and the barrier to entry is super low and it's free. Like that's another huge reason. Like it's basically a perfect storm for the game to be successful.
It's as simple as that. It's a company that respects where the money comes from and knows what the players want and are delivering on it. Sadly, there are those that would like to stand in the way of that. In an article written by Jade King titled, "Marvel Rivals Has Too Many Heroes for Its Own Good," they go on to detail a litany of issues that they have with the game and why they believe it should take notes from Overwatch. Jade writes, "Marvel Rivals arrived with one hell of an impact, but as the dust clears, some obvious flaws are now plain to see. The lack of role queue is one major omission, and is already making effective team play an impossibility when playing with strangers." Unless
this is the like I guarantee you this girl wrote this article like she lost like 3 ranked games in a row or 5 ranked games in a row and then she wrote this article. Like 100%. Everybody knows this. Like, because it's not like she's not like wrong, right? I mean, because like, yeah, it's a random queue, like cooperative game. You're going to have some times where you queue in and you don't have people cooperate. Like, that's life. Especially at low ranks. It's like, I remember when I was in like bronze and like silver, it was really hard for me to play Punisher because nobody would ever assist me or play with me. And so I would always play Hawkeye or Hela because like I could secure kills on my own. But once I got closer to gold, and I'm not even high ranked, right? But like once I got closer to gold and I was playing against people that were even in platinum, it would be easy for me to play Punisher and then have my team synergize with me.
Unless you want to switch to Vanguard or Strategist of your own accord to salvage an ailing match, you'll end up losing. This is a problem with Overwatch 2, but role queue has made it much easier for you to form teams you know have a decent chance of winning if you work together. No Limits asks you to throw this aside for some chaotic fun where emerging victorious doesn't matter, but in Marvel Rivals, that is the only way to play. So it's impossible not to criticize. Right now, I spend games playing support out of obligation, preventing me from trying out other heroes. The lack of role queue isn't a flaw, it's the game's strength. Rivals gives players the freedom to play and adapt, rather than forcing them into a pigeonhole because they were too late to join a match or they were too late to pick a hero.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Overwatch 2 has made people miserable with its role queue, and players have been...
And also, it's very simple. People don't want, like, if somebody wants to queue tank every game, they just want to queue tank every game. Every restriction you put on a player is annoying.
Complaining about it for years. This reeks of somebody that's trying to drag Marvel Rivals down to Overwatch's level of mediocrity. If they can't see that freedom is exactly what makes this game great, then they're complaining just for the sake of it. From my perspective, not every game has to be specifically tuned so that you can roleplay as an esports player in your 30s. I've seen many people posing the question as to why Marvel Rivals is succeeding right now, and Tim Sweeney put it perfectly: fun. That's the reason why people are playing this game, and trying to bog it down with competitive tools isn't going to make it any better. I don't know about everybody else, but I am sick and tired of every single third-person and first-person shooter becoming a toxic sweat fest. I'm average at these kind of games.
Exactly right. That's what really kills games now. Is because like now you have people that are like the level of quality of player now, if you look at like the mechanical skill of a player in like 2010, like any game like StarCraft 2, look at the way that people played StarCraft 2 in like let's say 2010, probably not as good as the way they play it now. Same as Overwatch. I bet the first Overwatch League, the season 1, was not as high skilled as the most recent one. That's just always how it is. It's MOBAs though? Well, like what I'm saying is that every game is like that. Like WoW is like that too. Think about like what you needed to do in order to be good at PvP in classic WoW. Did you have a monitor? Okay. All right. Well, that's a good start. Now you have all of this extra stuff that you have to do in order to keep up with it.
Games. I know I'm not that good at them, but I just like to have fun playing them. The vast majority of people are average or below. And catering to the competitive end of these games is exactly how you push out the average player. The writer then goes on to discuss...
He's exactly right, 100%. Like, a lot of people, I think Fortnite's the best example of that, where people probably bounced off of Fortnite, like people that maybe started playing at the beginning when it was popular, probably stopped playing because of just, like, how high the skill ceiling got. It's like you just had to be too good at the game, you had to try too hard, and it was, like, too serious in order to play and just, like, relax. Because most people don't play video games in order to, like, prove themselves in some arena of champions. People just usually play video games to relax or just for fun. And so, like, if you can't really relax and you have to play super serious, then you're going to have people that are going to, like, you're going to lose your casual player base.
That's how Marvel Rivals is a hero shooter built on one of the most iconic licenses in gaming, but argues that the game being free-to-play creates an unrealistic expectation for players to simply enjoy being the heroes without needing to learn complex mechanics and understand their roles. They complain that the game's focus on mechanical skills disrupts the power fantasy that would be enjoyed by single-player games like Spider-Man or Batman, where the...
She's right. You can't have the same power fantasy in a single player game that you can in a multiplayer game. That's true. It's impossible for that not to be true.
Challenge is just personal gratification. The conclusion that the writer comes to is that even during its beta period, the roster was stacked with a staggering number of playable heroes and villains to choose from. In the lead up to its launch, more additions were confirmed for the roster, making it hard to determine who I would main and if I would even have enough time to learn the ins and outs before their release. Turns out that I didn't. And now the sheer act of playing Marvel Rivals is daunting. Once again, I find myself comparing it unfavorably to Overwatch. Overwatch launched with 21 heroes, while Rivals stepped out of the gate with 33, just 11 shy of how many Overwatch 2 has now. And it isn't an original universe, as it has decades of media to draw from when it comes to its roster. But that also means that there is less potential for future additions, and some of its biggest names can't be capitalized on because they've been here the entire time. For the first few years of its existence, Overwatch turned each new hero into a legitimate event. You would follow
That's because the game was good. That's the reason why it happened. The reason why they turned it into a big event is because the game was good. It had nothing to do with, like, anything else. Like, that's it.
Update and tease with fervent anticipation, waiting to find out exactly what role they might fill and what they would look like.
Overwatch was really popular.
This won't happen when Rivals add Sentry. Every new hero was unexpected, but for Rivals, it feels like we're already having to temper our expectations after NetEase jumped the gun on its A-listers. I could be proven wrong, but right now, I'm not very excited about new heroes coming to Marvel Rivals because we're already dealing with an excessive roster. There's no moderation and a desire to give players a temporary power fantasy instead of easing them into
You can't have a power fantasy when you have a group of people like you like your power fantasy is somebody else's cuck fantasy. That's the problem. You can't do that in multiplayer games.
This will only hurt the game in the long run, and feeling that way right now isn't a good sign. The roster is daunting is a bit of a reach. Having a large roster might seem overwhelming, but the game's mechanics at a character level really aren't all that complicated. The kits are designed to be easy to understand, so even if you're a new player, you can quickly grasp what each hero does. It's not about learning complex mechanics, it's about learning to get the feel for each character's abilities and how to figure out how to use those abilities strategically. This accessibility is what's allowing 20+ million players to play the game right now, jump in and enjoy it right off the bat, despite having a large roster. I'm sitting here wondering whether or not this writer lives under a rock. This game's accessibility isn't hindered by its vast roster, it's enhanced by it. Marvel has thousands of heroes spanning different universes, eras, and realities. Of course, this game is going to feature some of the most iconic heroes to draw players in right out of the gate. That's exactly what people want.
Well, they also have bullshit characters. Like, I don't know who the fuck Cloak and Dagger or Magic are. Jeff the Fish, the Shark. Who cares? Like, they have a bunch of bullshit characters in this game too. Yeah,
we
who the fuck
know
is Jeff?
These characters. Everyone recognizes Spider-Man's web-slinging, Storm's weather powers, Wolverine's claws, or Iron Man's lasers. The familiarity with these characters is what makes this game so approachable for both fans that are casual players or hardcore players. This isn't League of Legends where you have to sit back and figure out all these different intricate mechanics and how each one of these characters work from scratch.
You will eventually. And this is what happens with every game like this, is that as the skill cap goes up and like the floor goes up a little bit too, you're going to have more characters added and it will be harder and harder for people to keep up with the game. That's usually how that's like one of the big reasons why I don't play League, for example, is that like if they made a new league, like League of Legends 2, and they only had like a handful of characters, I would probably play it. But that's it.
With Marvel Rivals, we already have a solid foundation as to what these heroes can do, thanks to decades of media exposure. The diversity and depth of the roster is actually a huge part of the reason why players are flocking to this game in the first place, and pushing back against that would make this game not what it is. People have their favorite heroes, and the promise of even more of them is what keeps them excited. The idea that Marvel Rivals is going to somehow run out of recognizable or meaningful characters is just, it's fucking stupid. As an X-Men fan, I am offended by this. I'm losing my mind thinking about the potential for more X-Men characters to hit the roster. I mean, they could pump mutants into this game for years.
He's
and
so
still
right.
have more to come up with. Bishop,
True.
Deadpool, Rogue, Gambit, Cyclops,
Yes.
Nightcrawler, Jean Grey. Hell, we can finally
Juggernaut. Come on.
have a character in a wheelchair that actually makes sense.
You brought me here, Magneto. The next move is yours.
I think that the one thing that many writers and critics are getting wrong about this game, or at least the thing that I think that they're losing sight of, is that the vast majority of players that are coming to play this game are either fans of Marvel or they're just here for the fun and
it's narrative destroying for a lot of people that are in traditional games media that this game is doing so well, because it does a lot of things that I think that they don't want it to do, and it does them in a way that makes it good. Like that people like.
That's why this game is so successful, and that's exactly what kind of game these developers set out to make. That's why they're delivering on players' needs. That's why players love this game so much. It's been a long time since I've seen a studio so dialed into what players want, and especially what they want out of the Marvel IP. I think people need to keep in mind that the Marvel IP has been used and abused so many times, and the reason why people are so excited about this game is because we finally have something that's using the Marvel IP that's actually good for once.
Yeah.
I mean, the first skins that they produced for the two newest characters is Susan Storm as Malice and Reed Richards as the Maker. While the Fantastic Four have always been known characters, their evil alter egos are some of the most dark and obscure depictions in Marvel. I mean, the Maker lobotomized Tony Stark for an Infinity Stone. These developers are so dialed into this game in a way that so very few studios are today, especially when it's not even their own IP. And it's only going to grow this game's audience from here. Rivals is giving players exactly what they want. Thick thighs, the freedom to enjoy the chaos, the power fantasy, and the excitement of Marvel's vast universe of characters. This isn't about appeasing competitive gatekeepers. It's about creating a game that everyone can feel like they can have a blast playing. So maybe
that's going to be the main issue that a lot of people are going to have, is that like my main concern and like my worry about like Marvel Rivals is like it's like the skill gap going up too much because the game gets too hard for casuals. But like right now, I think it's like the golden time for the game because that hasn't really happened yet. Like there hasn't been like a huge esports scene. None of that stuff has like really gotten as big as it's going to be.
Instead of whining about too many heroes, the writer should realize that this is the kind of game that's keeping Overwatch awake at night, because Marvel Rivals is everything that Overwatch isn't. The idea
and it will make Overwatch better in the same way that Last Epoch, I believe, made Diablo 4 better. That's another thing, is that if you have competition in a space, it will improve the quality of everything in that space.
Rivals is somehow going to run out of gas just blows my mind. How do you have such little brand awareness and you call yourself an industry expert? I could make an entire 7-hour live stream discussing all the different heroes that they could potentially have in Marvel Rivals in the future. I actually should probably do that sometime. You guys should follow me on Twitch if you guys haven't. Catch me live. Maybe we'll talk about that one day.
That's a really long video.
Stream. There are so many characters in alternate universes and all kinds of different things that are out there with different moves and skill sets that they could be able to use in Marvel Rivals. I mean, you have Earth 1602. You could bring in all the 1602 characters, like the characters that are like from the 1600s, really cool additions, and their powers work a little bit differently and things like that. You could do Marvel Zombies and bring in some of these zombified characters because they also act quite a bit different and would play entirely different. That would be really cool. Age of Apocalypse, because that brings back some like ancient mutants and stuff. There's so many different ways that you could go around this and find so many different characters that are out.
They're probably gonna try to shy away from like characters like Beyonder, probably Thanos, maybe Doctor Doom, Apocalypse, like obviously things like Galactus. I think they're probably going to shy away from like the super cosmic level power characters. Why? I think that's probably what's going to happen. Yeah, Galactus is in the game, but you don't play as Galactus. That's what I'm saying, right? It's too OP in canon.
If I was to show my power level, we could start talking about Omega level mutants. And in that case, they only have 2 out of the 16 known Omega level mutants in Marvel Rivals at this moment. If they add Legion, I might never play another video game.
I don't even know who that is.
Incredible TV show, by the way. If you guys never watched Legion on FX, I would totally go watch it. It's such a joy to watch. They did such a good job with that TV show. But that's the thing. That's what makes this game so exciting and fun. It's because we don't know what characters are going to come, but we do know what those characters are likely going to play like
Legion
because
Charles
we have such a
Xavier's kid?
history
Really?
with
Okay.
this brand, with this franchise, and especially the people that are, whether you're a huge fan of Marvel or whether you're somebody that has just, passively taken it in, you watch a couple movies, maybe you just really like the MCU and
That's
stuff
me.
like that.
Yeah.
You're still going to be able to recognize the vast majority of these characters
Yeah,
and
I do.
know exactly what they're going to do. It's not like you're going to be like Iceman, I wonder if he shoots fire. Quicksilver, I wonder what his power is.
Yeah.
Most of the characters are self-explanatory, which makes the barrier to entry for this game
Yeah, I wonder what the Hulk does.
non-existent. It makes it so easy to get into, and everybody has their favorite characters, so you get to sit back and wait and hope to see if your favorite one comes in, or maybe if your favorite character's already in the game, you're just waiting to see, maybe I'll start learning about some of these other ones.
Yeah.
And then you start maybe reading some of the older comics and stuff like that. That's what makes this so cool.
Yeah, it builds the
For
universe.
me
Yeah, for
specifically,
sure.
I am actually a legitimate hardcore Marvel fan, but I have not engaged with any of the media for years now because it sucked. I'm just going to be real. And there's going to be a ton of people that are going to agree with me because that's just the way it's been.
Yeah.
But like old X-Men, like X-Men 97 and stuff like that, the old
He's right.
comics, even the original first set of MCU movies up to Endgame, kind of. I liked Endgame. I think it was still a really good movie. There's just certain things that I wish they would have done. It just sucks because the IPs were split, so you couldn't have the X-Men in with the Infinity
weird.
War, which doesn't make a lot of sense because the X-Men played a huge role in the Infinity War in the comics, and you guys probably don't really care about any of that stuff. But there are people that do, and because of that, they haven't been engaging with the brand whatsoever, and this game is one of the first first uses of the IP in a long time that effectively use it in a way that makes you want to engage with it and gets you excited about its future. And that's why people are loving this game. So trying to criticize the game for having too many characters, you're out of your mind. That's like saying that
I think that too many characters does create a barrier to entry, but I don't think that we've hit that threshold yet, especially when you compare it to MOBAs that have over 150 characters. Like, you're just not there yet. It's a good point, but it's just not. No.
that's like saying that people wouldn't have liked Marvel versus Capcom. Did that have too many characters for you? If there is one thing that I've learned, and this is probably the one thing that makes me really hopeful about this game's future, really optimistic about this game's future, is that a lot of these Eastern studios, the minute that they strike gold, they throw all of their weight behind it.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Try to, scam the players and try to drag them along. They just throw everything they can at them the minute that they get their hands on it, and it's why players keep playing their games. Look at Black Myth Wukong. The game comes out, it gets incredibly successful. They start patching it, fixing some issues in the game, but then they start adding in a boss rush mode. Did you pay for that? No. They added another character for you to be able to play as in a certain area or something like that.
Elden Ring did the same thing with the Colosseum.
I haven't gotten around to do that. I think it's like the Tiger Guy or something like that. But they didn't have to do that. They just do it because they appreciate the fans, and they want to show those fans that they appreciate them supporting them. And that's how these games continue to be successful. I think Stellar Blade's another really good example of that as well, right? They did a lot of collabs and skins.
Yeah,
and stuff
I don't
like
even think Stellar Blade was like, I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 game. I think it was a very good, solid game. But like, the fact is that it was just a good, solid game. And I think that's what a lot of people want. That's what matters.
that they threw into the game, and I
would say it's about the same as like Space Marine 2.
Appreciate
somewhere around
just
there.
like how I appreciate Sue Storm as Malice.
Yeah, great character.
Oh Lord. I'm not really somebody that likes to buy microtransactions, but when it comes to this game, they are doing a damn good job at putting me
I have not bought a single one.
putting me in harm's way, or at least my wallets for that course. Speaking of harm's way, few of you guys know this, but I actually do live in the Los Angeles area, so I might end up being evacuated or on fire. Let's hope neither.
That's bad.
This might, depending on how things go,
It could be
who
a little
knows?
awkward.
This is really one of the only ways for me to say anything to anybody.
Yep.
If something happens for whatever reason, I'll be uploading in a while. Let's just hope that it doesn't, because I really just don't want to have to deal with that. I'm lazy, man. I don't want to leave. Like, if it's a fire, like maybe like 2 houses down, I'll think about leaving. Anyway.
Yeah.
Hope you guys enjoyed the
that's
video.
what a lot of
Stay
people
cool,
did.
stay righteous, stay safe. I'm going to move out of California.
Smart. Very smart.
That's all I got for today. Follow me on Twitch. Catch me live. Follow the Twitter, like the video, all that stuff. See you guys later. Peace.
Family, family, family.
I think Marvel Rivals is going to run into an issue where the game does become
Marvel
really
Rivals
complex and there are a lot of things going on and it's harder for newer players to get into the game, but we're not on that part at all. And it's going to take a long time. There's the video. Make sure to give it a like. This is a good video. And I feel like it is definitely a threat to Overwatch because also like every game, even a game like Overwatch needs new players. And what new player is going to choose to play play Overwatch over this new game that everybody's talking about? Like if you're an esports person, if you're enthusiastic about investing a lot of time into being good at a game, would you want to invest that time into a game that has like 600,000 players or, 600 players? I mean, Overwatch doesn't have 600 players, but like my point is that like it's got way less. So yeah, it's not a threat when they're already dead. Yeah, true. If they add a PvE mode to this, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. It's going to be so funny. Anyway, guys, thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate it. We had a great stream today. I originally wasn't going to stream today. Went on. I'm glad I did. I had fun. I hope you guys did too. And I'll see you tomorrow. So yeah, until next time, boys. Peace. See ya.